this is the right thing to do and not.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's somehow we seem to think that there are, some other meaning of value, but I think that's very nicely put, Amit, that it is finally the importance we put on something, and yeah, perhaps that opens up the whole, aspect of values, because often I've seen people thinking that values are permanent, they are like fixed, like let's say honesty. Or, just 15, 20 minutes before starting the session, I googled for the word lies, especially the images. So I went to Google Images and typed lies, and all I could get was trying to say that lies are bad. Now I don't know. How do you think about it? Are lies good? Are lies bad? Or they somewhere in between?
Depends.
I like that word. Depends.
Um, I'm sorry, I dropped out. The electricity went in my place.
Oh, okay.
Back now.
Yeah. I was just extending your point and kind of saying that yeah, we tend to. I've seen a lot of times. Maybe at some point of time, even I used to think that these values or so-called values are fixed things. And I was taking the example of honesty, and I was just asking, but are these fixed or are these relative? How you put it? It's the importance, and does my importance change based on situation, time, and so on? And if my importance I put on something changes, then then what they are good or they are bad? Let's say lying is good or bad. I don't know.
So I think that they do change over time. I mean, so okay, so we can posit that the values will change over time. Even our values will change over time. So definitely they're not static. They'll obviously change over context also, as you're saying. In
Hmm.
which context would honesty be okay? In which context? But they're still very strong for me in the sense I value those because I value them. And
Hmm.
in that context, when I'm faced, I have a strong sense of right and right, or this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do, or and it could be in any context, not saying only honesty, but it could be should behavior, it could be behavior, it could be many things. You touch the elder's feet right now.
Right, right.
Somebody would say this is not the right behavior, right, wrong behavior, but so, but I will hold that value that respect is a value you should have, and respect has to be shown,
Hmm.
and hence you need to go down, and so I think even though they may change, and I myself may act different in different context, at that instant in that context, I hold that right and wrong very that I I won't even generalize. I feel that very strongly in that context, and that's when somebody else, either the child or anybody else, congruent with that framework of right and wrong, I am disturbed. Right? I am disturbed, um, and that's typically the challenge with kids, in the sense that the child is doing something that is against our value, right? And
Against
then you are
against
trying
my
to
values, right?
against my values, yeah, against my value in that point at that context.
Right, right.
So and that disturbs me, right? And then there is that tension, the child and you, in terms of uh, trying to add value, right?
Okay. So we're talking about two things. One is, if I'm trying to summarize so one is the contextual part that yes, in one context, I may not value something as very important, and let's say honesty, and I may lie. In another context, I may hold, or at a generic level, I may hold honesty as important, but at certain context, I may lie. I often give my own example. When I was in college, uh, I had a affair with my now wife Aditi, and both of us lied for many years at our homes to continue our affair. So I don't know whether that was good or bad, but that's how we did it. And it's difficult to look back and say whether that was wrong or right. Um, I don't know whether that was wrong or right. I don't know how you rate us, both of us who lied vociferously to our parents for almost 3 years, till we told them the truth, and till we got married and so on. So so one is the contextual part, and one is the more generic part. What do I in general hold as more important? Uh, and I think, as Amit is pointing out, we might be behaving at a situation level, but possibly we end up looking at children at a more generic level and say, hey, in general, I hold honesty more important. So if my child is lying, that's not done, kind of thing. So that's I think a very interesting start. What do you say, guys? Um, I don't even feel like changing the slide. The discussion is so interesting. So jump in with your thoughts. Rate us for lying 3 years to our parents. What do you think about that, and so on?
So I'm gonna let other people speak, but if nobody speaks, I okay. I think for me, I mean, I still struggle in sense. Are there some absolute basic morals that you would like to have, right? I mean, if there are some basic values, are there at some basic level, there's some basic values that you may yourself have not upheld, like you're saying, if you think honesty is a very basic value and you didn't upheld it in that 3-year uh, time horizon, but is it a basic? So are there? I guess for me, as the question is, are there some basic values, and then there are stuff that is probably far more context and situation driven, or is that everything is very context and situation driven? So even things that I may say are at the inherent level very basic are still no, nothing. Then it becomes too abstract for us to operate. Right? It's a challenge to say if there are no values that we are guiding ourselves in terms of living, and then how can I enforce it to my child, or how can I expect it from my child if I understand that I am not following it, or there are no absolute truths, right? I mean, it's very hard to live a life like that. So even though you may have lied for those 3 years, you may still uphold honesty as a very inherent value, and may want people to be honest with you in your interaction, or your child to be honest with you in his interaction, right? And yeah, that for me is a question still. Uh, I've come to believe in a little bit of more, I would say, moralistic values. So there are some inherent values that you want to kind of have for yourself and maybe share that with your child. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. I'll just stop and let other people speak.
Okay. Others, what do you think? Um, I also have a slide which kind of throws in a situation. Okay. So I've kind of broadly divided the session. So before I take in more sessions, let me kind of framework the session a little. So the part one is where we kind of just question values. So I call that as myths, meanings, and madness. So because there's, I think, all these three, and possibly in part two we'll see how much time and how much it is needed. We'll possibly get into some methods, or at least talk a little about it. Because me to part one changes part two. So let's continue with this discussion, and let me take your suggestion. So. Uh, let, I've obviously put up a situation here, but you can think of any situation. I mean, I've already given my own example. I think that's one situation where I lied. So you think it is okay that was it okay for me to lie, or was it not okay? So yeah, others. What are your thoughts apart from Amit's? Yeah, are you all able to hear me? I know Gayatri and Jagmandeep are facing some issues. Uh,
I can hear you.
yeah. Um, I guess somebody's logged in as Aarohi TTT facilitator. I don't know who is that. Um, please identify yourself. Uh, but others, Deepthi, Nimi, Prerna, would like to just share your thoughts.
If I were in his place, I would have done that. So I guess it's okay.
Right. So this slide is just what I had pre-packaged it, but I guess we are overall talking about, our values basic, as Amit is talking about, or our values contextual, and what do you think about, yeah, all of us at some point or the other, kind of, uh, let's say, not staying with the values, whatever we otherwise tend to think as fundamental, if at all you think that way. So I think the second question is always after the first question. Uh,
It's more contextual. So that's what, as I keep telling, it is simple. I mean, you decide at that situation how you handle, how you deal with it.
mhm.
Yeah, there are some of things that we value profoundly, but again, depending on the situation, we might again change. I mean, they don't have to be stagnant. Uh, they don't have to be rigid. I think they are more flexible. So, but as Amit also was mentioning, we when it comes to children, we don't do that. Or when we try and judge other people, we are more into, oh no, this is that. But when you are in that situation, you feel it's okay. You can be flexible. You can bend a little, bend the rules, kind of thing. So, so it depends on how you perceive, how you look at things, and it's okay as long as you're not harming anyone, or that's the way it should be, probably. That's what.
And even the harming anyone can be looked at in many ways. Harming anyone right now, harming
Yeah,
anyone 10 years down the line, harming somebody in Honolulu, where, what is harming a near dear one, what?
correct. Yeah. See that slide, that behavior one, which you will say that every behavior has a positive intention.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that's what I feel. We bend it and we use it for our convenience, how we want to look at it. And because children, they are more like, for us to be preached to be shown our power on, we will say, no, this has to be done that way. But when it comes to us, we are more flexible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, others, we are still at you, whether they're, some basic, as Amit was using the word basic, I'm using the word universal. Are there some universal or basic values, or is it just everything is subjective? Yeah, so why talk about it? Let's just go to sleep. um, so, what do you think? Others, Radhe, can you hear us? Prerna, we haven't heard you. Amit, I think the
That's why it's all
sorry.
That's why I said it's all complicated.
Or maybe it's all simple, just leave it, forget it. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
subjective. So let's forget it and go
that's
to
very simple.
sleep. Very simple.
Yeah,
Just go to sleep.
very simple.
Yeah, the other Amit, the other Amit is not spoken, and yeah, Prerna, Gayatri, if she's can hear now.
Yes, Ratnesh, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
How are you? Long time.
Yeah. So yeah, you joined in a little late. We just kind of started with a kind of, I would almost say, with real punch. Uh, Deep dived into this whole thing about whether values are basic or universal, or whether they're just subjective based on the context. Should we hold them dear as universal but operate on a subjective level, based on the context, based on the situation? So how as Amit said, will it just get crazy? Will we be able to operate if we did not have some basic values? So these were some of the thoughts. I'm just trying to quickly summarize for you, and I think Nalini and Akila, people who have just stepped in now. So that's where we are.
Um, uh, Ratnesh, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Ratnesh?
I
Yeah,
can hear you.
this is Radha. Yeah,
Yeah, Raja.
see, actually, to me again, I think it is only subjective because to me, because I am using them, if I look deep into myself, or even if I look just onto myself, I can clearly tell it's all subjective. Because even today, like, um, because when I think, when I tell the truth, the people may not understand. When I think, they may take it, they may mistake me for something else. I try to tell a lie, or and just handle the situation, and that's it. So it's like that. Um, so it's not mere, but it's so dear to me. Like I want to be honest. I want to tell the truth. And if there are some rules in the place where I am, I want to follow the rules.
So
They are so dear to me.
so let me just pause you for a moment and poke you. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm asking you, why is it so dear to you?
Because um, I'm reliable to myself when I'm honest. When I
Why?
don't do that,
Yeah, why are you unreliable if you lie once in a while or sometimes, and sometimes you tell? Why are you unreliable? What makes you more reliable or less reliable? Because to me, you are reliable. That's it. How does it matter whether you tell the lie or truth?
because it's like it is going to be so quick. Like I may jump into uh, just not for the situation, but just for the um, ease of doing anything. I may choose the other ways, like which I don't
Sure.
believe
And
in. Like
what's
I
what's
believe
wrong
certain
about
things
it?
are values.
Yeah, but what's so wrong about
It's
the ease to tell a lie? Let's say.
no, no. It's like you can still stand by that. You can still handle the situation when you tell the truth at certain cases. you can very well handle the situation, you can dare the truth, like
Hmm.
so that way it's just, see, I feel that's more real, and I feel that is natural. And I don't know, it's like, I feel a kind of total restlessness when I step into that
Precisely.
even to handle the
Yeah,
situation,
precisely.
when I
I
tell a
want to
lie.
ask. I want to ask you, why do you feel restless? Why is this so much, whatever importance? I mean, I'm not just asking you. I'm asking everybody. Um, why do we become that way? Why is it that okay? It has to be this way.
Maybe I believe in that, maybe I believe in that so
What makes you
strongly.
believe it? What makes you believe in it?
Actually, I'm thinking, Ratnesh, I
Yeah,
have to
sure,
think.
sure, sure. So Amit is
So for
saying,
me, I
yeah,
think
okay, yeah, Amit, yeah, okay. Go ahead, Amit.
yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's pretty hard to live if you don't have some guiding principles around which you drive your own behavior or actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is an easy function, or it's an ease to actually do that, right? It's like you're trying to make it easy for you to make decisions when you adopt some of these guiding principles, right? So otherwise, at every moment you have to decide. At every moment you have to decide whether should I tell a lie? Should I tell the truth? Should I tell a lie? Should I tell the truth?
Wait,
Right?
wait, wait,
At
wait,
every
wait, Amit.
moment.
No, 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 no. Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Just because you have a very strong, let's say, principle, does that help you, or in any ways, in at any situation, you kind of wait and take a, it may be very spontaneous, but does it require a hard wiring behind you? It's like kind of okay, a set principle, or is it just very whatever? It's a mental process. It just takes over and uses based on what we want at that time.
Let me use an analogy, right? Suppose
Hmm,
I'm
hmm,
trying to drive a car,
hmm.
and when I'm initially trying to learn, I'm like, how will I ever manage to accommodate the steering wheel, these three pedals, this indicator, this gear shift, and at the same time look at the road and follow all the rules that are there, or follow some of the rules that are there. Uh, but as I start doing that action or try to learn that thing, I try and learn it, and at some point it becomes um,
Sub,
muscle memory, right?
right, subconscious competence is what we call it.
Yeah,
Right.
yes. So I don't really think about it, but those decisions to press, not to press the accelerator and the brake at the same time is ingrained into my muscle memory, right? Or
Sure, sure,
subconscious, whatever you want to say, right?
sure.
And I'm not making a call every time, but when I was learning, I had to make those calls. I would say, okay, I don't want to press the accelerator and the brake at the same time. Very careful about my foot
Right,
positioning and
right,
movement.
right.
Right? Now, for me, values are a little bit like that. So when you're starting off as a kid, you probably didn't have those things hardwired, and you were approaching the world with a tentativeness and probably an openness, which we don't have now because of these values. Maybe that's maybe the downside. I don't know, but also reduces a little bit of my tentativeness and all because I know how to conduct myself based on these a little bit of values. Now,
Okay, Amit,
whether
Amit, can I pause you here? Okay, so if I take your
yes, you
analogy,
can.
if I kind of analyze your analogy or whatever, look into the analogy, in fact, it supports not hardwiring. In the sense, so when you started learning, you were tentative, but how did you really learn it? You really learned it by doing it. You saw, okay, this is how the gear works, and this is how much wheel I need to turn to make a turn. This is how much brake I need to brake, and over a period of time, that kind of got into your system. Isn't it much with the life also? When I start living, I say certain things to my mom, dad, people around me, friends, and I start learning that this is how one needs to operate to people, and this is how one needs to do things. It's not about the words or principles, but more about uh, the kind of learning that this is how I need to live, which will include telling lies, include telling being honest, which will include whatever. So many other things. Meaning, we have just looked at one value, but there could be hundreds of value of
But
responsibility. So
yes, so to
is it,
build
is
on
it,
that,
does it,
everybody will develop
sorry?
everybody will develop their own driving style. I
Right,
completely agree.
right.
Right? So building on the analogy, yes, everyone will be, some will be always driving with the clutch pushed,
Hmm.
some will be, kind of driving always rashly, some will be driving with brakes.
Also,
And
all
yes,
of us will learn how to handle the road. If our life is a road, we will figure out when to do what. So, in that sense, we will figure out when to, let's say, tell a lie and when to tell the truth. And maybe the
and
truth
yes,
will sometimes backfire, and maybe the lie will sometimes backfire. So, in any case, both are, we're just trying, and sometimes we say, why did I tell him or her the truth? Or we say, why did I tell a lie? You know what I mean?
yes, true, true.
So in a way, your
Yeah,
analogy is saying, don't bother about values, go to sleep.
yeah. Ratnesh, uh,
Yeah, Radhe.
yeah, actually, see, what I do think, like, it's like, initially, it's like the choice of telling the truth and telling the lie. It was like that, maybe when I was young, and when I become conscious about what I'm doing, and I was and I realized I did not like, actually I was really feeling very no, kind of total, I just hated the way I did certain things. So I feel, so that's what not I'm going to like. So maybe if I'm going to be like this, I would like what I'm doing. Slowly, things like, I understand what is so dear to me, and maybe I feel those are the things that I would. So is it like that? I'm just thinking. Um, when I look back,
Yeah,
what
I'm
I
I'm
do,
I'm wanting to
what I did.
question these value being dear to me. I'm just questioning that. I'm just saying, where did this being dear to me come from? Is it a lot also coming from the programming, or is it coming from our own understanding of what works for me or what does not work for me?
Exactly.
Where is it coming? Is
Yeah,
it coming from all the programming, everybody telling me, don't tell lies, don't tell lies, don't tell lies, be honest, be honest, be honest? Or is it coming from my own understanding as to what really helps me in my life? So they're two different things, because
exactly.
a lot of time it is just the programming which makes me feel so guilty, feel so terrible because I said something, because I did something, and then I'm feeling horrible because that is against the programming. The programming said whatever, don't do
It's
this, but the whatever, we ended up doing it.
Yeah, it would have done a little part, but basically that programming alone, it's like after some time, we may actually, analyze into, what are these people telling? Why are they telling? This is not helping me. Whatever they are telling, no, see, that's not okay. Because even today, when I believe in, you would have told this, you would have handled it this way, and the other person says, no, that helped me. I quickly handled the situation. So it's up to them, because even the programming would have been done to them as well. It's because I understand I am going to be happy, and when I see people who does these things, oh, these are the things that I like, so let me choose this. So it's my choice. I think
So I'm asking, which one
we,
would
we
you
choose
like? Would you like the programming or would you like the learning? Which one?
understanding. No, I don't like this programming, because it's not going to help, because I do a programming today, and definitely after understanding, maybe my parents or my people whomever around me would have programmed me. That time it was total uneasiness. I remember, I did not like it thoroughly. I really remember. I would have acted in front of my mom, I would have acted in front of my dad, but I totally would not have liked it. Acting so respectful, before any of the person who comes inside my house. I totally did not like it that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even now, now I know, from whom I'll escape, to whom I'll show my face, and to whom I'll smile it. Now I can choose it, but then I did not had the choice of doing that. I was forced to do it. I should go and say hi and ask them how they are. And no, I did not like it then thoroughly, Ratnesh. Being respectful, I did not like it. Now I'm realizing it. Oh yeah, I did not like being respectful then.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Others, let me take some more views. Jagbandeep is trying his best. uh, right, others, I'll try to help Jagbandeep. Others, just your views. People who have joined in now, people who joined in a little back.
Hello.
Yeah, Kila.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to comment on Amit's analogy. Actually, just thinking about it, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I took my time to come.
Sure. Sure.
I think it's really good actually, that analogy, because just like when you, I mean, before you learn driving, you even when you're at the first stage when you don't know anything, but
Mm-hmm.
you have some basic knowledge that you go with, right? You don't go with nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, even in fact, even in the process of driving, you have to follow certain rules.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you come, so those basic rules to me are, I can link it to the certain values which everyone, I think, we should have,
Mm-hmm.
because those are what is going to actually guide you later on when you come to the stage of where you're able to do whatever without really thinking. Then you can choose whether you want to, depending on the road, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
I can choose whether I want to, follow a particular rule or follow a particular value or not, and then I'll face the consequences for it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I choose to be rash on the road, I
Mm-hmm.
can choose it, but then I also have to face the consequences of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, I can choose not to lie instead of being truthful. But ultimately, I will have to face the consequences for it. But having those basic values, those basic rules, is very important. So I don't think so. Uh, you can negate the value of having certain rules in your life, certain values in your life.
Okay. The only small thought is that the rule, when we start, let's say, driving, I'm just pushing the analogy a little bit. We only
Mm-hmm.
know the rules. We know that we need to follow the rules, and these are some of the rules, right? In the same way,
Right.
much in our life, we kind of we can be told, let's say, or we can get to know the rules. All right, that okay, I gotta be, let's say, honest, or I gotta be responsible, or I gotta be fair, and so on and so forth. Any value if you pick up, so I can know what a
Mm-hmm.
value is, but the issue is not with just knowing. Now you're saying, as I know the rules, I also get to know the consequences of it, and then I bear the consequences. In the same way, can the child not understand in his own journey the the very, whatever, the play of the values and what we do with the values, rather than us looking at that this has to be, like somewhere at the beginning somebody said, these are the things you should be doing, right? Are you getting me,
Mm.
my
let's
point?
let's take an extreme sorry.
Yeah, Amit, go ahead.
Let's take let's take an extreme example and see whether you still stand by your stand, right? Like suppose my child is wants to take a knife and put it in the other person's throat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say it's respecting other people's life is probably a basic value, because you put universal versus subjective, right?
Right,
So you
right.
would say in those cases an intervention is probably appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Right,
you
right.
would say an intervention is appropriate to say that there has to be a basic respect for other people's lives, for
Mm-hmm.
example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an extreme example, but
Sure, sure.
um, so this question that is there a universal value, we would say, yeah, well, technically we can say, every man to himself. We were like monkeys. So at one point, we can also say there is no universal value like that. But we would probably agree that unless you're living in an island where cannibalism is probably promoted, you would probably say let's not kill the other person, right? And you
Sure,
would try and prevent your child from doing it. So
sure.
we would say not killing someone is not, at least not, maybe not killing an ant is, you'll say, okay, if he's killing ants, let him kill ants, no problem. But if he's killing a spider, okay, maybe. If he tries to kill a snake, if he tries to kill the other child that comes to play every day, you would probably stand up and start to make an intervention, right? So then we are saying that even though we say that most of our values are subjective, it's how we learned the car and it's our driving style. We would still say driving the car onto another pedestrian walking on the road is probably not acceptable as your driving style, right? So I would kind of posit at least that there are some universal values, and you may draw the line artificially, but it would be hard to say that there is none. At least from saying respecting the other person's life may be probably as basic as it gets.
Okay. So, so I'm not taking that stand, Amit. I'm just poking the hole because the universal is the regular stand. So don't take it as my stand. I'm just trying to question everybody here. So just to
No, no, sure. I
so
was just
yeah,
saying when
yeah,
you said
yeah.
universal, no,
Right.
not you. I
So
think the
just
slide says
right.
universal plus subjective.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Just to take this example further, or rather adding an interesting dimension to it. Now, when you say that as an adult, you or I will stop the child from, forget the child, anybody else from murdering another human being, but maybe we'll not so much bother about a spider or an ant or a mosquito for that matter. The important thing here is that that is my value, right? So I am stopping the child not so much for the child's value, but it is my value. And at this situation, in this subjective situation, this value is very important to me, and I am operating out of my value. Now, does that mean that the child should have same value as me, or does that only mean that I will operate from my values, knowing very well that the child has a different value altogether? For example, now if I continue the same analogy, if my child is going to a war and fighting against an enemy and still killing another human being, now we are at the human being killing level, right? Now my value might be more for my country, and hence I may actually feel proud of it that my child has gone ahead and killed 100 enemies, right, with his whatever skills, uh, because now my value has changed. Not that the child's perspective has changed, but my perspective has changed because the situation has changed. So I'm also coming from that, is it the my value that we are operating from, or is it really the value that we are operating from? Are you getting me? My value versus value as a universal thing.
Okay, fair rebuttal. I would say fair rebuttal. Um,
In
yeah,
that
I
sense, it
think
is
yes.
still subjective. In that
It
sense,
is
it is
subjective.
not universal.
If I hold that it's okay to kill an enemy in some context, kill a person in some context, but not in some context, yes, it is subjective. Then yes, you're right, it is subjective.
No,
But
even if I
I mean,
hold
maybe this is
the
not the. It is still my value. Yes, I understand.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
it
still
is my
my.
value.
So I'm not so much into the army and that thing, but it's more my value versus the value as being universal or basic. I'm using these two terms interchangeably. I'm trying to draw this because a lot of our approaches towards value, let's say teaching value. So I'm not, Akila, I don't think that I'm against teaching the rules of the road to the child. Not at all, at all. Right? All I'm saying is our ways and approaches become very different when we start thinking of them as basic and universal and start thinking the child has to have it and so on, as opposed to when I start realizing that these are actually my values, and they're just mine, and they are all mine. Also are subjective. I also am subjective, as well as others could have a very different viewpoint about it, and hence I become, my whole approach just changes. That's all. It's not that I stop doing anything about it, or definitely not, but the whole approach changes, and I think it opens up multiple ways of working with values, and it possibly brings values from a high pedestal, I would say, to a more operating, codes, or which is what Amit was mentioning. Finally, it's the importance that I give to something in a certain context. So it then boils down to that, and my understanding what importance I to what do I give importance, and so on. Yeah, more thoughts. I think
Yeah, I'll just go mute, but I'll let her.
Right. I'm just reading some of the chat messages which I did not read. I think some people don't really have the audio going. Right. Amit, the other
Actually,
Amit is, yeah, 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 go ahead, please.
I've seen when we try to kind of bring in the values, or sometimes when we try to tell the child, we
Mm-hmm.
get trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen Siddhi, my niece, uh, running away from mosquito.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to say, "What is it? Just hit." So she would say, "How will you feel when you are being hit? So would you like it?" And she, of late, trying to convince her friends who are non-vegetarians that how will you feel if somebody kills and eats you?
Right.
Would you feel nice about it? And we try to say it is their wish. Then she said, no, I'm trying to tell them how it feels. So it is not good. So I I feel very trapped because I don't know where to explain, how to explain.
Right. Right. So I think that's where the ends versus means debate opens up, because is the value by itself an end? Should we be living for an end of like being honest, or being kind, or being whatever, loving to animals and insects and bugs and everything, or should we be living by that values are just a means of whatever, means of living, as it's they are operating codes. So are they operating codes, or are they a subject to be learned,
Yeah,
or something, an end by itself to be achieved? That I am moral, I'm a moral person, is that an achievement,
yeah.
or is it a way of living life, and hence it changes, it's dynamic, it doesn't need to be fixed in one way? So yeah, I think that's the debate that you have opened up.
Yeah.
Let me Okay, so Smita is kind of reinforcing, saying that we can only develop on what he reasons or he understands. Yep, I think that's an interesting point, right? So should we bring in the codes first, or should we bring in uh, the experiences, and from there start building it up? So what comes first, um, the chicken or the egg?
No, I think it's interesting when you frame it as the values are ours, and hence our actions are driven by those values, and other people or other children, and children even more so, are developing their own, as you say, process or own way of working in the world or living in the world, and as part of that will develop their values. then obviously they would have their own journey, right?
Yeah.
So okay, but say what? So let's say like, I'm okay. Maybe this is another example. Suppose if I'm as an adult treating with someone whose values are very incongruent to mine. So let's say the other adult is, you know, I have a business partner and he wants to uh, bribe and give bribes, and I'm against that bribing, and
Right.
I have different values.
Right.
And
Right.
then I say, okay, hence I don't need to live with this person, or
Hmm.
sorry, I don't want to have a
Yeah.
job or run the business with this person.
Sure. Sure.
That luxury is not there when you have the child, right? You cannot say, oh, my child has this values to kill people, but let me just drop him and run away and say, you take care of and grow your experience. So even though we can accept the fact that people may have different values
Hmm.
and they will act out of their own values,
Hmm.
and that there is a process by which they will develop their own values, and hence all of us are always developing values and have strong opinions about what is right and what is wrong. It does happen that in a family context, or especially in a like a parent and child context, that you are responsible for the child. Okay, let's even forget responsibility. The child is somehow dependent on you. Let's say,
Sure.
even if people will agree in that narrow domain, uh, which means you have to live with the child, right? I mean, at the basic level, which
Right.
means
Right.
that if the
Right.
values are far incongruent, it becomes pretty hard to live, and you don't have the luxury to separate them as you would in a business partner, for example. So I don't know needs versus wants, but there has to be some overlap or some congruence. Otherwise, it's like living in a hell, right? To some extent,
Yeah.
with your own child.
The important thing which okay, so if I were to, okay, let somebody else respond to you, but does somebody else wants to respond to Amit's example? I think that's a very interesting example, and that does bring us to needs versus wants. um, because you're saying that, okay, it's becoming a need now, right? What do I do? How do I live with this person, because this is my child and his or her values are incongruent with my values, or at least the values that he is choosing in particular situation seems to be incongruous. Let's say at a more milder level, he's not sharing things with his friends, and my value is that I should be very sharey and all that. Now, what do I do? Right. So at a very day-to-day level, I'm taking a dilemma, but while it could lead to a much bigger dilemma. I mean, you're talking about yeah, me being, let's say, my child says it's all right to bribe, or my child says it's all right for a gay marriage, right? So we could have all kinds of pathways as the child grows older, um, and we could be very incongruent. Our values could be very incongruent with the child's values. So what do we do? Yeah. So somebody would like to respond to
Yeah,
Amit?
yeah. I just want to add that, like if even if you take the same, continue with the driving analogy. I mean, values. I think can never be forced upon anyone, even if it's a parent and child. I can only demonstrate the value to an extent. Uh, there is, I mean, how if for example my child wishes to cheat an exam, okay, I can only uh, I mean, there's no way that I can ensure that my child will not cheat in an exam,
Sure,
right?
sure.
I cannot enforce it upon. So so I can only demonstrate a value through my own example,
Mm-hmm.
through my daily living. When I have an opportunity to cheat and I show that I am not cheating, even if it means that I'm going to lose out on something, I can only demonstrate that value, right? So I think it's the same thing with this, isn't it? I cannot enforce that value, even if it's unless it's like a life-threatening thing where you said somebody is killing, the child is killing somebody, where I will have to intervene and enforce it. Otherwise, values uh, cannot be enforced with anyone.
Sure, sure. So that's taken for. I mean, I guess all of us here understand that we cannot force our values on anybody. in fact, I would say we may not even be able to demonstrate. For example, the cheating one. Now, the child thinks cheating in an exam is fine because marks are all artificial or whatever. I just have to get so many marks, and what's the big deal? And we are not giving any exam right now. So how do I kind of even demonstrate? So we end up just preaching. We end up just saying to that child, hey, don't cheat in exam. Even if I cheated, I would say, don't cheat in your exam, right? So we really don't. It's not even demonstration actually. We really ended up preaching. But I'm still adding the layer to it. What if the child is okay with cheating? I am not okay with cheating, and that's what is becoming an issue in terms of relationship between me and the child, which is what Amit was bringing up. That that kind of becomes a conflict because the child is choosing something else and I'm choosing something else. So I'm also looking at how do you look at this conflict thing. Now, my value is, let's say, no cheating. Child's value is it's all right to cheat. Come on, what's the big deal? Um, so now what do we do? We have a conflict of even operating values. Forget universal values. Even operating values when we have like he was giving the example of business partner and bribe. That this is just a means, right? So okay, I choose this means, you choosing that means. Which is where I think these two keywords, needs and wants, come into picture. So, but anyway, I'll wait for somebody to respond before I.
Would that mean at that point in time we step into understanding mode of uh, understanding from the perspective of the child of what is happening for the child to think it's okay to do something that he feels it's fine is bending the rule or bending that value.
Mm-hmm.
So you step into the shoes of the child. I mean, understanding comes in here to just to, I mean, not to conclude anything, but
Mm-hmm.
just to look at things from his point of view, to understand for our own understanding. If we were in his place, would we still do that same, or would we
So
react
let us. So
differently?
if I become Amit for a minute and I say, okay, I understand, but I'm still uncomfortable because it's still in conflict with my values, isn't it? So now what do I do? As you were saying, it becomes a living hell because on one side I'm kind of okay empathizing with the other person's way of looking at it, but I have to live with it. With a business partner, I can leave. An organization, if I find it unethical organization, I can leave. A community, a city, a country. But what about a near dear one, my child? I can't leave my child. In that sense.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? I hope, Amit, I've got your whatever this thing about the conflict part right, because I think it's important because in some ways it's the conflict which creates more sparks than the general preachy part. What he can general gyan let flows. I don't know how much of it children even listen. So that's okay. We can let that go. But it's when the
I was
conflict
thinking
becomes.
about the gap.
Yeah. Oh, my mom has started or my dad has started. Now let's just mute the whatever. Just let it pass.
No, that's right. I think the conflict more, yes, I think because the conflict destabilizes you, right? I mean, forget the child. I mean, he's in his own world, but the conflict kind of, makes you unhappy, right? At the end of the day. So that's much more harder to kind of live with because you have to live with yourself 24/7. So yeah, that's right. That's the question. I'll let somebody else kind of respond back.
Yeah, I just want to add like what's been my experience, at least with kids, is that I choose which conflicts I want to get into and which I will let go.
Okay.
So I'm very, very like when it comes to something like say cheating, I will say, okay, I might be preachy. I'll show it. I'll demonstrate it, whatever. But ultimately, I would let him experience it.
Mhm.
Go cheat and see what happens.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know.
Mm.
And then there are some conflicts which I cannot afford to do that. So then that will be an out confrontation. You know, but most of the time, I think it's I'm able to let go. I said let you know let you go if when there is a clash in values, when they want to do something which I don't approve of because it goes against my value system. I'll say fine, you go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So so
So you
it
are
just
saying
you kind of let them experience the
right.
consequence
So you are saying in some
wherever possible.
right. So I'm summarizing, Akila. You're saying in some cases it's a want, so I can let it go. I want it, the child doesn't want it. But in certain cases, it's a need. No, it has to be. So let me conflict. I'm okay with the conflict because it's a need. It is no more a want. I can't let it go.
Yeah, so
So,
even
Yeah,
so what? So the need sometimes becomes a want, and some needs, or sorry, some values become wants, and some values become needs. Which is why my third point: is it a need or is it a want? What is it?
even I go with Akila actually. Sometimes we let go the child to if he says I don't want to share, okay, don't share. And if he says I don't want to invite that person, and okay, don't invite. So certain times it's okay, but uh, when the same invitation or when the same sharing is with somebody else whom we cannot handle or whom we'll become answerable, then we get into the conflict. We tell rather I kind of choose to tell him I cannot handle the situation, so I want you to do this. So it's like that. Yeah, sometimes it becomes a need, sometimes it becomes a want.
Right. So let's figure out in our life whether values are actually wants or they are needs. Because many of times we operate as if it's a need. We say, whatever, you would be untrustworthy and blah, blah, blah. We use big, big words, if you do like this, whatever. And that's why at the beginning, some of you were not there. I was giving an example that just about half an hour before we started the session around 8 o'clock, I just Googled for lies, and all the messages that I got in the first few pages of the visuals, I only Googled images, were all kind of berating lies as if lies is the worst thing in the world. While we all know how much we end up using them or doing them. Like, it's almost as if it's a need to be an honest person, right? It's not a want. Now that is where I mean it gets very interesting because Amit was also saying, as a generic principle. So is it just something that I want? I want my child to be honest, or I want my child to be not cheating, or I want my child to be caring and sharing, blah blah blah. Or is it really a need? Because these kind of connect with the universal versus subjective. And again, I guess uh, it to me just opens me up when I start realizing it's possibly not a need. Meaning we can live in many different ways, and which is why it is not a need. Because without water, for example, without air, we can't live. So there are no options there. But I guess we can live without without a lot of values at a lot of times, and that is why it is a want. I'm not trying to say that it by it becoming a want we stopped discussions like how Smita is pointing out, reasoning, logicking, but my whole perspective changes when I operate from a realization that it is perhaps a want, not so much of a need. And hence my whole, as I said, my whole approach opens up and multiple options open up. That's the kind of point that I'm trying to underline without obviously not trying to say that we shouldn't be doing anything or we shouldn't be having discussion. We should be, and all the points mentioned that we should be having discussions and so on, and helping the child develop his judgment and wisdom is absolutely important. But from which perspective am I coming in is becoming is something that I wanted to lay more emphasis on. Yeah, and Amit has been throwing in his Bacha Sudhar program. Precisely. So the Bacha Sudhar program happens, Amit, because we think it is an end, because we think it is universal, because we think it's a need. That's where we get into the Bacha Sudhar program. Yeah, more thoughts. Your thoughts.
So I think even if we say that it's what you're positing is that it's all subjective, it's a means rather, and it's a want that all these values that we want to impart or we want other people to follow. Um, I guess the question still remains: how do we kind of, you know, are there still kind of situations in which you would kind of, you know, in the Bachas with High program, put your foot down, right? I usually say, you
Sure,
know,
sure,
that's the
sure.
limit. Right? You
Yes,
know,
yes, yes. Sure,
you
Amit.
know,
I mean,
you
right.
know, like it is my need, but you know, I understand, but you know, I put my foot down at this
Sure,
point,
sure, sure, sure.
no more, right? Like,
Perfectly,
so
perfectly fine by that. Yes, yes. Because finally, I even if it is subjective, it is subjective. Now, so I want at this subject at this point of moment, this value is important to me. So I'm gonna put my foot down and that's it. That's the end of it. So I think that's absolutely fine. We don't need to be guilty about it. That's our value. Fine, super. And tough luck. The child is my child.
correct. So I think that's what I like. I also kind of come to believe a little bit that maybe this is the wrong way to put it, that we're going to condition the child or damage the child in whatever way we can, right? The only option we have is how little to do it, right? That's or you know, how little do we kind of do it, because if we it's just if we agree that it's all subjective, it's my needs uh, or my wants,
Mhm.
um, then yes, we should be more tentative about it. But as you know, there may be situations where, yeah, I mean, it may not be that easy, and I may
Sure, but
ultimately
there,
say,
Amit,
well,
the
for
situation to me which kind of demands it, not so much that the child demands it. इस बच्चे को तो सुधारना ही है. So that's the big difference. That's why I like that बच्चा सुधार program of Amit. So the perspective is very different. When you are firm about it, you're not firm about it because the bacha is a bigra bacha or the bacha will get spoiled or anything like that. No, because the situation demands it, because your values are important to you, and hence you are firm about it. So this tentativeness is not about a situation or about your values. The tentativeness, actually, it's not tentativeness, it's about the letting go part, or it's about realizing that it's whatever, it's a means, it's subjective, it's one, helps you not to kind of uh, I would say block the child, but only block that particular situation, or be firm about the situation, and then the child is still uh, even that whatever you're being firm about is also an input to the child, apart from all the other inputs and all the thoughts and feelings that the child is going through,
right.
which is where I say I don't need to be guilty about being firm as much as I don't need to be guilty about letting go. So either ways I don't need to be, because I'm not trying to uh, you know kind of make it universal or make it a that yes, my child has to be an honest child in this world. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to operate from my own and yet give space for the child to create his own, both at the
No, but
same
it
time.
does bring a question about roles and responsibility, right? I mean, in the sense, I do I have a role in as part of parenting? Um,
Great. So let me add a fourth line to this slide. Role versus responsibility. You have said it, Amit. It's a role, not a responsibility. In the sense that I cannot hammer it into the child and pack him up with certain values. But it's my role to enrich his life with various discussions and whatever thoughts and options and so on and so forth. So I guess we'll do a lot of favor to ourselves if we remove the word responsibility and replace it with role. So we have a very active role, but we don't really have the responsibility. Can I be responsible in that sense?
Mm, right.
Yeah, I just want to add here. Suppose if I have a value which I think is universal, which is an end and which is my need, but if I'm, and I totally believe in it, that these three are, that's what it is. But if I just, look at it uh, f- from another perspective, that it's subjective, that it's a means and it's a want, okay, what I'm actually doing is I'm actually doing myself a favor
Yeah, yeah,
in the sense that if like I am not able to convince, say, my child that it is not right to cheat, I can at least be at peace that okay, it was ultimately uh my want, not my need. You understand? I mean, I don't know whether I'm making sense, but
that's exactly what
uh
I'm saying. We do ourselves a big favor by doing this.
yeah, we are not actually helping the child as much as I think we are helping ourselves if we just change our perspective.
Oh yes,
Just
and in the whole
just
process, you help the child a whole lot, so you can feel good about
yeah,
that
yeah,
also.
you do. Right. But being very selfish, I think we'll be doing ourselves a much more a bigger favor, I think.
Yeah. So
And yeah,
I,
obviously, of course, we are helping the child in a way.
yeah, and soon Amit will say Parent Sudharo program. The way Amit is going in the chat. I'm talking about Amit Shah. So so soon parents. So yeah, so it becomes a parent bachao program. PBP. At least let's save ourselves from all the cruel things we do to ourselves, because as we realize that it's anyway not in our control. We can't really, you know, kind of teach or preach.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of just taking a breath, just waiting if anybody has different thoughts, uh, uh, something to uh, yeah, add value to what we have been sharing since 8:30.
Ratnesh, actually, to realize that certain value is just a want to me. I kind of though it may be late most of the time, but um, it's like I just think, what um, have I not done the same thing when I had a similar situation? And so so that time, I'll get into a confusion. So I have been I'm though so same preaching would have been happened to me, and I felt those things are not helping to me then. And later, very quite later, I would have felt, um, yeah, there was actually another way, and even that would have been a better way. But at that time, I would have done what my child has done exactly currently. So kind of I'll stop with what I'm doing, and but uh, but really feeling restless whether am I not doing I'm supposed to do something and I'm not doing it, or um, how will I go about it?
Yeah,
It's a kind of
I guess
confusion.
Radhe, that is where we need to understand that hey, most of it is because of programming, and the programming comes from all directions, right from moral stories to parents to media, and while the media actually earns because of all the immoral things happening in this world. Right? If there was no immoral things, there would be no need of media, and media will totally go bankrupt. But the media tries to put up an image of morality. So I guess once we realize that this is all programming, and much of our troubles are because of the programming, and we can which started much earlier in our childhood, and if we can kind of uh, cut that umbilical cord of to the programming and say, I let you the programming go, then we are able to respond to the child in a far more you can say open way. Um, and as we were discussing, it does a lot of favor to us. And I'm still there with the thought that Amit had said that will it what do we do in a situation of conflict? And I think I would Amit go ahead and even say that if there is a situation of conflict, that's good news actually, because that gives me uh, an opportunity. See, let's say the child is not cheating, or let's assume the child is cheating or not cheating. I don't even know. So both are dangerous. But when the child is cheating and thinks it's all right, and when I think the opposite, to me, the situation of conflict is what really generates more discussion, more point of views, more inquiry, more uh, uh, data points, and so on and so forth. Simply put, more opportunities to explore it. So I would say it's good news that there is a conflict, that there are contrary experiences where contrary values have been valued, right, or given more priority, and I think differently and child thinks differently. And can I can I actually use that? So that's in a parent child relationship. If I am looking at my role to enrich the child's life in terms of learning, if that's my role, which may not be in a business case like you were giving the other example, but in a parent child case, that's the beauty of the role, right? That it is our in some way a beautiful role to enrich the child's life, and because of the conflict, we can enrich it even further. So I'm kind of hooray that there is a conflict of values, that there is a friction, because that friction will generate the heat of discussion and examples. And if I can be as much listening as I invite the child to listen to me, uh, then there is a lot more learning than in any other way it could happen. So I'm quite whatever excited about a conflict like that. Did I make it look good to you?
Not really. I mean, I see where you come from, like in the sense that conflicts are good because they force you to examine your own values and even question them, and even explore where you got them from. I mean, like, and kind of this whole three universal subjective, all that you would first probably have to do yourself, or not even do yourself, be ready to examine that yourself before you're open to do that with the child, right? I
Or
mean,
maybe
if
do
I
it
am hung
together.
up that,
I'm saying maybe do it together. That's okay.
yeah, I mean, theoretically, yes, I understand that, but practically, what happens is that I am so much in my own values, so much conditioned to hold them so dearly and close to myself, that I am most of the times not open to examine them myself, which means, leave aside the part I'm ready to just do it with my child. I'm like still, I
Yeah,
have these strong opinions strongly held, I call it, like,
yeah,
it should be strong opinions weakly held, but it's strong opinions strongly held. And which means that I typically in that heat of moment, uh, I'm not open to have that big dialogue about, hey, why did you do this cheating, for example, right? Or what can we do about cheating, or is it really cheating, or what is cheating, or
yeah,
why do we cheat, and all those questions. I'm like already put a judgment on it and said, we don't cheat, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
fools don't cheat, or whatever. Like, even you can add more stuff to it, but and so I guess the challenge becomes more for myself to be able to maintain my calmness or maintain at least some element of perspective when these things happen,
Yeah,
so
which is
that I'm
where
open to do what you're suggesting.
yeah, which is where Amit, as part of Parent Bachao program, you need to take a printout of this slide and put it out as a reminder somewhere above your bathroom mirror, or I don't know where. That reminds you that it's all versus this, and yeah, maybe even if I had a bout in the morning where I was the one punching, maybe in the evening after seeing this slide once in a while, I can go back and say, okay, you punch now, your turn.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think it's kind of, when no plan survives, you know, as I say, no plan survives, collision with reality, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
the plan that survives, at least for me, and I share it in different forums for different things, but it kind of survives, is that I share these three with my child. I, I upfront tell the child that to me, there are no universal values. These are all subjective. To me, values are not an end. They're just a means to live life. So I don't need to die as an honest person. I just need to have lived my life at various points with honesty and various points with dishonesty, depending on what I chose. And and values are not needs, they are wants, and they are my want and your want and so on. So I share this with the child, and then the child becomes your perfect reminder, or perfect, dad, remember you said that, and kind of reminds you of the other perspective. So this is something that has helped me, not just with one child, with when I'm working with a lot of children. I tell all of them the same thing, and then they are the one who remind me. So that works as a perfect reminder rather than the printout. So the best parent bachao program is the child himself. And Amit, I will agree to that. The other Amit, I'm saying Amit Shah, who has been writing the parent bachao program. So the best parent bachao program is the child himself.
you to some extent you're right in the sense that the children are very quick to point out anything, any flaws in your action or behavior or arguments far more quickly and easily than you would. So yes, I mean they are far better mirrors than most other people. So in that
Yeah.
context, very true. I let other people speak. So.
Sure, sure. Others, overall thoughts, not just to this discussion, but overall discussion. Yeah. So Amit, I don't know whether this is Amit Shah. I don't know whether they are 30 years ahead of us, but they are definitely in a different era. As in, by the time they would be 30, we would not be 30. We would be 60 and maybe even dead and gone. So they do definitely live in a different era. And the kind of, when we realize that these are just means and wants and subjective, we realize the kind of values that will be perhaps more operative for them would be different from what is operative to us. When you imagine 30 years later, that these geographical boundaries, which are already kind of blurring, this blur even more. And 30 years back, intercaste marriage was so strange, was so rare. Now intercountry marriages are becoming very common, and maybe 30 years later, you'll have people marrying all over the world, and then suddenly we realize some of our very values are nowhere to be talked about, right? So, uh, uh, yeah, 5 years in. So all, yeah, in a way they're not ahead of us, but they're in a different era. And this realization that the values that are so important for us may not be so important for them, in the sense of their context will be very different, right? Is something which helps us to uh, be in that realization that these are my values and they will have their own values. So why impose mine, but I can explain mine, I can share mine, I can demonstrate if possible mine, and so on. But I need not uh, kind of try to inject them in the child, because the child would be living in a different uh, space and time.
Also, I think sometimes it helps to understand that when did these values become so important to me? I mean, they were never always so important, right? It was over a period of time that these values have become so important. So when I understand that, I am like a little bit more okay about our conflicts, because somewhere I know eventually even my child will understand that. Like,
Yeah,
for example, cheating. I mean, it's not that I never cheated when I was young. I also cheated when I was in college or school for that matter.
me too.
But over a period of time, I realized that, this is not, this was not the right way or whatever. And that's when that value became so important to me, right? So if I come from that perspective and that understanding also, I think uh, it helps in, these conflict situations.
Oh yes, oh yes. So that's I think that's very important point, that our values are ourselves. They change, they change as we are kids, and as we are teens it is different, and as maybe as whatever uh, over the 40-year-old they have changed in a different way. Yes, so the values change, and we can't really impose our whatever our age onto them.
And
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen values change in say like 2 months also. uh, with my with my niece, she said there was a review in Sanskrit and she didn't get a word, and somebody showed it to her, so she didn't write it, saying that didn't come to my mind, so I didn't write it. So we
Mhm.
were very proud. So we didn't express anything.
Yeah.
We were like, oh wow. And 2 months later, it seems she didn't get something, and her friend helped, and she wrote it. And then she came back home and said, yeah, I didn't get it. She showed me and I wrote it. So we didn't say
Hmm.
anything. And next day she went to the teacher and said, don't give me marks because this one I saw it from there. So it can change.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I have these quick slides. Let me just run them very quickly. I call them as myths of values. I'm just running them through more because I made the slides, so you better see them. Uh, all right. So the first one we've already we talked about enough, that we kind of pounce on the negative ones. Um, you know. Uh, so we kind of think that there is the negatives need to be removed. At least that's and they need to be replaced. While to me they are like the same side of the coin. So you cannot take out the negative. They're together, right? It's almost like that, and nothing is it's not absolute. It's we are somewhere in between. The second myth is that that the normally the moral stories, or even a lot of our good versus evil kind of movies, trying to show that, okay, if if you do bad, you will definitely get a bad consequence to it. Now unfortunately the life isn't like that. Yeah, I can do bad and still have a great life, at least practically. I'm not talking about spiritually, religiously. I'm not getting into that. But I'm saying in itself, right now, in the next 5, 10 years, I may not see any consequence because of it. Right. The life is funny. It doesn't necessarily, let's say, punish the immoral and whatever. And hence the child's way of looking at something is totally kind of in opposition to what moral stories tend to show, which is a major issue with a lot of which is why there are some movies which are very sensitively made, which try not to show anything as negative or positive. And one of the one that is coming to my mind is an Iranian movie, right? It's called, I think, The Separation, if I'm correctly remembering the name. If anybody has seen that movie, uh, it has 4, 5 characters, and whole movie you're just trying to figure out what's right or wrong, but there is nothing right or wrong, but everything seems to be right and wrong, and it's an amazing movie. It did win a lot of awards also, and it's very well done. Um, okay, yeah, we're getting a confirmation. Arif is talking. It's separation. Uh, So yeah, so this whole thing about showing negative or positive. So I would rather encourage the literature and movies and a lot of things without these shades of the darker and the lighter ones, but just the gray ones, and understanding things from not from right wrong perspective. So that's the second one. And let me quickly go to the third one, which again we have talked about, is that uh, somehow this whole thing about of teaching rather than uh, it being a journey on its own. I just wanted to run through these slides. Yeah, your thoughts, some questions, thoughts.
So this myth 4 is interesting, right? Because you made this point
Sorry, Amit, your
that
voice was breaking. Can you repeat?
yeah, no, I said the 4 myth 2 is interesting that you said we have these idioms, right? Like, I don't know, stitching time saves nine,
Yeah,
all those things. And even though, I mean, you can argue that, these traditional wisdoms or hints of wisdom are simplified and oversimplified. Then in many contexts, they do make sense. I mean, you do bear the consequences of your actions or whatever. Like you say, it is not as clear cut as these stories will make it out. These stories are a very simplified representation.
yeah,
And I don't know whether, okay, so I mean, it's hard to kind of not show those stories. I don't know, Siddharth has been reading the Mahabharata. I don't think if there is any book that shows as much moral as Mahabharata does on every level.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess the clear-cut stories are a little misleading, but there is still an essence of truth. So I wouldn't really dismiss it so quickly, but I do understand your point that it's not as black and white as they make it be.
Yeah, also where the story makes a very black and white point. Um, so idea is not to shut the book, but the idea is that or shut the story. But the idea is to actually open up the story. You know what I mean? So it's not that I will not read the story just because it seems to be morally right or wrong or pointing in one direction, but I would open it further, the story further, and explore many aspects of it or dimensions of it, so that the story itself becomes a beautiful point for the child to inspect, various. whatever moral decisions or value decisions that various characters took and how he or she looks at it and so on. So it's not that I'm trying to say that we should shut these off. It's just that we shouldn't look at it that way. That these will do the good, or rather, this is how it is. But just use them in a more, you know, yeah, exactly what they are shutting off. We need to open up. So on one side, I would love to. So to that extent, Mahabharata, since you mentioned, is to me not showing right and wrong. In fact, because almost everybody commits a whole lot of wrongs, and almost whole everybody commits a whole lot of rights. So, if I go really
Correct.
deeper into
Yeah,
Mahabharata, not the kids version, but I really go deeper into Mahabharata, to me it's like a life guide or whatever.
yeah, that's what exactly when I wanted to point out. Like every character in that does something for the situation, and they'll take decision like what they are going to do. Though it's not an universal value, or it is by their choice of value. It's almost every character does that. So that's what even I thought sharing.
Yes, I guess the biggest challenge, I mean, is then just, in most cases, I think the child, I mean, yes, we're talking in the context of the child, but in most cases, more self-reflection, right? Like, how should I be behaving or like I pay a heavy price when I lie. I mean myself lie, and I pay a heavy price to myself because I'm thinking about that consequence and kind of reflecting on all of that.
Yeah.
I think somebody did mention how we need to be kinder to ourselves in the session. So for me, then all of this, yes, it's in the context of the child, but we're mostly saying not to hold ourselves that high to our own values to some extent, right? Like you have to start from there before they may even trickle down in your interaction with other people, leave alone your child where you are already trying to be this authority figure and hey, look at me, I'm this parent marching along. Uh,
Or the
uh,
other way around, Amit, you can use not in the word use not in a derogatory way, but in a very beautiful way. You can use the child as a mirror to look at yourself. So the whole aspect of being a parent, you know that you have a very loving but a very questioning person around you. Right, and which is why it helps. It kind of, you can use that. So it need not be that first I need to look into myself, then I will do it with my child. It can be simultaneous, and that's the beauty of it.
sure, sure. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is hard though. It's very hard. No, so I can think of one incident, right? So I think Siddharth was wanting to buy some toys, right? And every week he would say, we can order some books, or we can order a toy, or we can go to Crossword. And now ordering is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I or Ramya said, why are we ordering so many books and you have so many toys? And then he just pointed out that you guys order all the time. Like, you're ordering right, left, and center, and uh, uh, stuff that you would want. But why am I under this condition that I need to be, uh, be more thoughtful about ordering? And we can argue, yes, I'm ordering groceries, or I'm ordering books that I need for my work. But again, you can question all of that, right? So um, again, I may say my value is I am careful with money, and I want my son to take this value of I am tentative about money, or I don't know, I'm cautious. I value money,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Whatever that means. And or I can just say I earn it. So damn it, I'm gonna spend it the way I want. You don't earn it. When you become 18 and start earning, or 21, then we can talk. Um, um, I think it's hard that way because yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's why I say it's just I mean, I know what you're trying to say, to do it with the child itself, or to do it in any context, including when the child is there and using that as a medium to
Hmm.
explore this. I just fail at it so continuously and consistently that I think it's good theory, but I haven't really figured out a way to practice.
Yeah, I think I still want to go back to this the slide with the three and add the fourth one, which you yourself said, that role versus responsibility. I think somewhere we start thinking that it is our responsibility and put too much pressure on ourselves. And that is where we think it's our responsibility to teach the child value for money and blah blah blah. And and that is where the whatever the teachy preachy part comes up in all of us. I'm not saying it doesn't come in me, but in all of us it comes. But if we ease out of the responsibility aspect and just look at it more as a role, and I constantly ask, oh, so what's my role, what's my role? And if my role is to enrich his life with many thoughts, experiences, then this discussion about him saying you also spend, I saying I also spend, is a good discussion, because that's the way he's looking, he's thinking, he's exploring, he's kind of, in many different ways it is happening. And I can only increase it by inviting him for more discussion. That doesn't mean I start inviting him to spend more. That's not the point. It's still my money. I can hold on to it. So it's not so much
No,
as
but it
about
very quickly shows my bias.
sorry.
Like it very quickly shows my biases, right? So like yesterday, he wanted to learn Hindi and he was very keen on that. And I was like, yes, we will order Hindi books to just now, like no problem whatsoever. Like you're learning books, and why not? We will order books because that resonates so much with my values of, I want him to read more, and books are great and all. If it was another Hot Wheel toys, I would have said, oh, you already have six of them, and why are we ordering six more of this,
Right.
right? So
Right. So again,
it just is a
value books
context
over toys. Yeah,
exposes
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure.
yeah, it just exposes my own
Good. So there
so
you go.
to some extent I'm scared. I'm like scared to, I mean, or like, as I said earlier, it's more about doing as little harm as possible. And I
Yeah.
know you phrase it more positively, like, use it as a learning exercise. For me, it's like, doing as little damage as possible as he grows up, so that,
Right.
so that's a different thing.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you clearly. Okay. I don't know who was speaking. With somebody was sharing something.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I just went on mute so that other people can.
Yeah, yeah. But somebody else said something which I couldn't make out. Right. Anybody wants to respond to that, or so? If I take a clue from this Calvin and Hobbes that I have on the screen, is uh, to some extent the whole Amit, is and to also respond to your thing, is to be like this, whatever, zoom lens, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and kind of keep doing that at many different levels, because uh, with our own children we tend to be very microscopic. We kind of looking everything only in that, this is what he's doing now, and we don't zoom out and look at it as a 10-year or 5-year or next plus the next 10 years kind of a time frame, and will he be doing that or whatever, whatever. So, you know, if we can kind of, this whole thing about zooming in and zooming out, if we can kind of do that on a continuous basis. So while at some point we are zooming in and kind of jumping onto the child, but at some point we also zoom out and look at the larger picture, or broaden it and say, hey, what are what is the real big deal that we are talking about, and so on. So I think that that kind of helps. And at least for me, I've been fortunate to simultaneously be with my children as well as many other children, and that many other children helps me to zoom out and different children at different point of time, because they are all doing different things, require me to keep changing the focal length of the lens, right from zoom in to zoom out. And that helps, that really helps. And plus, as other adults, we can keep helping each other to, hey, come on, chill, zoom out, what's the big deal, why are you getting so microscopic about something. So this ability to either by myself or with the help of other children, my child, other adults, and so on. Zoom in and zoom out kind of helps a lot, and that as a method to the madness. So I think Nimi started with simple and complex. So the complex or the madness part is what Amit has been talking about. Is something which really requires or help. The response it requires is for us to zoom out. Uh, how much you do that is depends on how microscopic you are going. So I think that's a personal call, but that's something that has helped me, and I wanted to share with. If it makes sense to what I've been talking about, especially the zooming out part. Yep. Any thoughts?
Isn't like like Calvin saying, big picture people will all die eventually, right? I mean, so if you change the lens of your camera and you say, I'm gonna take a wide lens, so no, how does my kid look, or how does he look in terms of everyone else? So light widen the lens, or you're saying long lens, which is like, how does this thing look in like 10 years later, right, or 5 years later, right? And so changing the lens, but once you start changing the lens, then anything in that microscopic world would look very, very nihilistic, like we'll all die eventually. Why learn integers, right? Or
Yeah.
why learn anything to that extent? So how do we balance this nihilism to some extent, saying which the lens will have, right? Saying, we are so insignificant in this whole world, like, I'm like one person in 7 billion, and I'm gonna die in 70 years, and that kind of small
Yeah, so
lens versus
my
tomorrow
my
I have to.
experience, Amit, is it's the other way around. It's as parents we are so much microscopic that once in a while we only need to zoom out. It is not nihilism. You won't go on that trip too much. Something will happen, and you will again be microscopic. So it's just good to zoom out once in a while. Um, you don't have to worry about that you will go totally aloof and totally that rarely happens. At least I haven't seen people on that trip so much. It's the other way around. That's the problem. We're too microscopic, and then kind of everything is amplified and magnified. So I don't think that fear is really a real fear, not with the parents. Any other part, yes, you may look at your organization or your work in that fashion, but I don't think with children it happens. Though maybe by the time you age and maybe you become a grandparent, and then you actually typically zoom out enough, and then you are able to kind of even advise your children, whose children you are a grandparent of, possibly. So I've heard grandparents saying these kind of zoom out things. Chill, man.
Yeah, I think it's kind of both, right? I mean, I'm not a grandparent, but even as a parent, it, I think, as you grow older, it also, your conditioning gets more hardened, I think. Like,
Sure.
I don't know, maybe there is an inflection point which I haven't reached, in which I will become more like the grandparent.
You
But
will.
right now it feels like it's getting more and more stronger and harder. And the challenge is to make it, like you're saying, more weaker like a grandparent.
Yeah, not really weaker, just zooming out. I'm not really weakening it, but I'm trying to, yeah, include more, uh, whatever, more vision into it. Yeah. Anybody, yeah.
Will it
Other,
again go to the point of what you want and your needs?
sure, sure, sure. It does
Okay.
connect back to that. I mean, that is the core slide. So, yeah, there it, and also whether it's you, how much are you into responsibility and how much you are into role. It also zeroes in that. Yep. More thoughts.
Ratnesh,
Yeah.
actually, in fact, I uh, I always have the feeling that I kind of zoom out more when it comes to other children than my own, and I tend to automatically zoom in when it comes
You're
to
not alone.
Lakshya.
You're not alone. All of us do that.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was saying. Because I work with other children, and they help me zoom out, so that helps my own children also. Because it just gives me that space to zoom out also once in a while. So, yes, absolutely. With other children, we are in a more zoomed out place. Sorry,
Yeah. So
state.
when, yeah, when I see my sister-in-law or my own sister talking about their own children, I'll have so much of chill out. Like, hi, this is nothing. The child is the perspective. Change your perspective. All that will come in. But yeah, it's actually very difficult. Oh my God.
Yeah, just that I look at it as something very enjoyable. I don't look at it as difficult. I look at it enjoyable. This whole thing between in, out, between getting caught up with my own values vis-a-vis understanding that the child has his own values, and uh, between being clear that it's only subjective. Even my values are subjective for me, so the child's values will also be subjective for him, and so on. So yeah, all of this, moving between different, you can say, little dots or little mats on the ground and trying to kind of cover up most of it. That's the game, and I look at it as enjoying it. So even let's say in my morning my tempers flared up, I enjoyed it back in the evening, saying, so okay, there I was jumping on that hot mat, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the game, and the perspective is to look at it as
Yeah.
Amit keeps saying to do minimal damage. I keep seeing it as maximum enjoyment.
Actually, Ratnesh, getting infected after this 2 hour session, the next 3, 4 days, even I seem to be really, enjoying it. All that will be there. And fifth day, uh,
That's where you need a
everything is
booster
lost.
shot. You need a booster shot. Go and watch the recording.
Yeah. Mm.
Uh, so we'll all prepare a booster shot. Every fifth day, Radhe should get an email or whatever to boost her back. Right. So I think we can kind of pause here with the very wise words of Khalil Gibran, and yep, I think it's 10:30. I just want to take your thoughts, quick kind of summing up, or whatever is swimming in your mind, whatever key takeaway or key thought is swimming in your mind. I just want to capture that. So I'll ask you to share either through chat if you don't have a mic, but preferably on mic, and then we can kind of close the session. So just share whatever is coming to your mind spontaneously. You don't have to really try and assimilate it. Don't bother.
No, actually,
For me,
I'm only thinking about how I'll let my children know what I'm thinking and how I'll get their help. Say thinking, seeing Amma preaching the values, so what will you do then? And if you, how you could handle me and kind of things. I want to make a note and I have a discussion with them. Exactly.
Okay, Amit is saying I will not nod off to my child. Amit is on Parent Bachao program. I think Nimi was sharing something.
Yes, I think for me, it's just
for me, sorry,
Okay.
Amit, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, it's just that I guess two insights. That values are my own, that I hold them strongly, and other people are on their own journey towards their values, whatever they may be, and they may be very different from what I have. So that's one. And I guess second is just to be more tentative or open in my interaction with people and children and my child in how I judge them on these values or how I interact with them on these values, right?
Okay.
So that I manage it more as, I guess, either doing less damage or just having more of a dialogue, as you would phrase it more positively, a joint dialogue around.
Yeah, and from my side, Amit, I'll definitely add that fourth line to that slide: role versus responsibility for my future session, so that comes up as part of the design of the program. Okay, others. Prerna, Nimi, yes, you waiting to say.
Yeah. Uh, so I was from the session. What I gathered was I never looked at value from the point of view like there would be like this, need versus want, or how it has to be looked in different perspectives. So that has helped me to clarify. And the zooming out part I really liked. So we zoom out at different points, but as the relationship changes, if it is for my niece, I look zoom in. So that kind of gives it's like a bell ringing. So that will help. And I still feel it is simple and complicated. Again, it is your want.
Sure. Yeah.
So from the session, I've gathered that you can break it down to such an extent, and it will help you to be aware.
Yeah, and you can put a board outside your shop saying, "I only deal in simple."
Yeah,
Complicated,
yeah,
go to the next shop.
yeah. My want and need is simple.
Yes, I only deal in simple.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Others, Prerna, Deepthi, um, Arif, although I don't know what time you came in into this session, like to just quickly share any thoughts swimming in your mind. Okay, I think that's okay. So I would be the session was recorded and be kind of putting it up. And yeah, thank you very much for being part of the session. And we hope you'll join in November too. Yeah, we have this once a month, so we'll send you the details.
Thank you, Ratnesh. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for
Thanks,
that.
Chandra.
Welcome. Bye bye.